Okay, great. I think we're ready to go. So just a couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. All attendees are muted, but please feel free to use the chat facility if you have any questions or thoughts that you wish to share during the webinar. The webinar will be recorded, and lastly, we will be tweeting our thoughts, so be social and tweet us at RelayWare using #ChannelChoices. Thanks, everyone. So, Chris, over to you. Are you there?
I sure am. Thank you very much, Susie, and welcome to our webinar, 10 Questions to Ask about Salesforce's Communities for Sales. Let's talk about who's going to be on this call first, just to give you an idea of the cast of characters you'll be hearing today. I'm Chris Buckles. I'm the fellow there on the left. My background is as a journalist at Inside CRM and VAR Business, among other outlets. And also, I was the editor-in-chief at Sugar CRM, so I have a pretty good understanding of the CRM market and also Salesforce, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. With me are two of my esteemed colleagues. First, let me throw it over to Jim Summers to talk about his background. Hey, Jim, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Thanks. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Jim Summers. As the slide says, I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at Antenna. Come from companies here in the mobile space, Antenna, FiberLink Mass 360, and also come from a marketing automation background with another firm that you may have heard of called Responsys. So very happy to be here.
And also with us today is Tim Harmon. Tim, are you on the line there?
Hi, everyone. I'm the VP of Customer Success for RelayWare, having joined earlier this year. And prior to that, I was the lead channels analyst at Forrester Research for the previous 6 years, and also spent a good number of years with various software and technology companies in marketing and channel development roles.
Great. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. I think this is a panel of people who are well-versed to speak on the topic at hand. And before we get going, let me just give you a very, very brief agenda. This is a very straightforward presentation of questions and facts. But before we do, let me just point out what we're going to have here. We're going to have a situation where we set the stage, we differentiate between CRM and PRM and sort of make sure we're all speaking the same language. Then we'll talk about the 10 questions to ask about your PRM choice, focusing on Salesforce's Communities for Sales. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. And I encourage you to put those questions in if you can. If you think of anything in the course of the presentation, please send that question our way. We'll be sure to answer it. And if you have any questions afterwards, also be sure to send that our way too. We'll have all the pertinent emails and ways of reaching us at the end of the presentation. And as Susie said, channel choices is the hashtag we're using for this. So if you've got anything you'd like to throw out there on Twitter, please do that as well. So as we get started here, let's just define what we're talking about. PRM, Partner Relationship Management, is what we're really talking about here. We're trying to compare apples and apples when it comes to PRM. What is PRM? Well, PRM is a system of methodologies, strategies, software, and web-based capabilities to help vendors manage the relationships they have with their partner community, which is an interesting set of interactions and relationships. If you're in a channel management position, you probably understand just how complicated and from at least from an outsider's point of view, an academic point of view, how fascinating managing those relationships can be. You see there the Forrester Research definition of what RelayWare is. RelayWare falls into that partner relationship management bucket very nicely. So what is PRM not? Well, PRM is not CRM. CRM is obviously the acronym that's been out there for a lot longer. It has a lot more of coverage. People understand when you see CRM in a business setting, they kind of understand what that is. But these are very distinct, different things. And you can read through these two definitions here, and you can get the gist of what we're talking about. One of the most important things here are those bolded, underlined items in each one of those blocks. You see on PRM, we're talking about managing partners versus CRM where you're managing customers or potential customers. That's a much more simplified, easy to understand set of relationships. Typically, it's the vendor doing things in one direction to win the patronage and the loyalty of a customer. When you're working with partners, it's a bit of a different situation because you and the partner have a symbiotic relationship. You want to motivate them to do certain things. That's not what a CRM seller wants to do. They want to get the buyer to buy. That's pretty much it. If you're in a PRM situation, you want your partners to do other things. You want them to engage in training, marketing, all these other things that make them better partners for you. So it's a little bit of a different set of relationships. People sometimes think of PRM as a subset of CRM, and I guess you could sort of do that you could include that in a Venn diagram of some sort, but I don't think it's completely accurate. PRM is all about indirect selling and marketing and delivering support and training and all these other enablement things to this list of people, or types of people, types of companies. Over on the direct selling side, it's very, very much more simplified.
And Chris, let me add too, I think this is the slide that tells the telling difference between CRM and PRM, right? That CRM is really focused on the selling aspects. And if you're looking to extend CRM to support collaborative selling with your partners, I think that's fine. But, you know, there's more than just selling that goes on in terms of a collaborative process between tech companies and their channel partners, not only selling, but marketing, delivery, support, training, et cetera. One of the ways you want to think about CRM is, you know, inside the four walls. It's an inside the four walls system for reaching your customers. PRM is really an outside the four walls system for collaborating with your partners, not just on the selling front, but on all those different processes and functions that your partners engage in.
Right. Thanks, Tim. That's a very, very pertinent set of differences there. So CRM is an enormous market. Like as I said earlier, it's pretty well understood. It's been around for a very long time, and as a result, it's a enormous market according to Gartner, $18 billion, and expects to grow. It continues to grow between 2012 and 2011. It grew 12.5%, and that rate of growth continues. And you see there this chart that shows the big players in the space. The big name vendors, you see the top three there: Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, with Microsoft closing in. But one of the more interesting things about this chart is that there's that great big light blue section that says others. There are about 800 different people, different companies, different vendors manufacturing, developing software for CRM. It's an enormous crowded marketplace. And the reason that others is there is because there's lots of different specific needs in different vertical markets that the companies are looking for specific solutions to solve. Also,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut somebody off?
I'm sorry. Just to jump in there, I think it's a great point. Is that clearly there's companies out there who have very specific processes that don't feel like they're being met by some of the more recognized brands out there in CRM. And I think a lot of ways people think that the market share for Salesforce is potentially bigger than what's shown on this slide here. But there are other formidable players here, like the Oracles, the SAPs, and the Microsofts of the world as well. So it is very interesting. We're actually, incidentally, if anybody's interested in seeing this, we're tweeting this graphic out right now and a link to it if you'd like to have a copy of it.
The other interesting aspect of this is that as big as this pie is in terms of its sheer monetary value, there are lots of people who are doing CRM via homegrown applications, and they won't show up on a chart like this. They're doing it via something they've created in-house that is a CRM-related application, or they're doing it via the world's most widely used CRM application. The joke is actually Excel on spreadsheets. They're trying to make do with what they have, and I think that is also the case for a lot of companies that are working in the PRMs in a partner relationship space. They're trying to make do with what they have as best as they can, and sometimes that means taking an application or a tool and using it as far as you can take it, and then not being able to get to to really the fulfillment of what your objectives are in managing the channel.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other comment, you can leave it on this here, and I think you're going to get to this point, is that I think a lot of people think of PRM as being a subset of CRM. And there's a lot of good rationale for that, but as you're going to show here, it may not be. It's a whole different set of issues and processes and systems that need to be considered. So it's not just a subset of a larger CRM marketplace.
Right. When I talk to a lot of people who casually know about CRM, about PRM, they say, well, can I just take and stretch my CRM application to turn it into something that can help manage the channel? And the answer is to a certain extent, but that's sort of like saying I want to run a 100-yard dash, and I've got the tools to get 50 yards down the road. That's great, but it doesn't quite get the job done. You see here, this is the direct selling model. Okay, you've got the customer on the right side, you've got your company on the left side, and that pathway on the bottom, that arrow, is very specific and direct. Direct sales. You control every aspect of the direct sales situation yourself. You control who is selling. You can control the message that they take to the marketplace. You control all these other aspects. Between you and the customer, that relationship is well defined by you. You motivate the salespeople. You pay them. You control every aspect of this. Of course, the customer has a lot of say in this nowadays too. But as far as the things that reach that customer, you are in control of those things. Let's look at what the indirect model looks like. It's a little more complicated. You see the customers are still over there on the right side waiting to be served, but in between them and you, now there's a whole bunch of other people that are playing important roles to reach those customers. You see these different forms of resellers and different forms of partners and the ways they work with the customers. And every one of those arrows is a aspect of the relationship in this process here. It's not just now between you, the vendor, and a single person reaching the customer. It can also involve a distributor and sub-distributors and a very complicated set of relationships. And a sale, the pathway between you and that on the left side and the customer on the right side can go awry at any point here if you're not managing these relationships right. If your intermediaries are not providing the right messages, if they're not trained properly, this thing can go downhill in a hurry. And unless you're managing it properly, you have the tools to see that, you won't understand what's going on until it's too late. It can really affect what you're doing. Now, the companies across the bottom, again, these are companies that provide things in the CRM space. Great for direct sales, perhaps not great for channel sales. Salesforce is a little bit different because they actually acknowledge that the indirect environment is there. They acknowledge that there's a market to be served, and they are there, which is nice, good for them. But we're going to see that what Salesforce offers is perhaps not as robust as you need it to be in order to really take care of your entire channel program. So here's a question: what is Salesforce Communities? Because when you hear Salesforce Communities, it throws the image of something social into your mind. But they have a set of communities that are designed for different things, including communities for sales, which is actually targeted not at direct sales like the rest of their CRM portfolio, but at channel sales, indirect sales. So Salesforce Communities, all the communities versions are basically based on chatter, and you can see here, Jim, some of the things that the people have said about it in the press as they tried to define what communities was.
Yeah, well, not only that, but this actually comes right from their senior product marketing manager, who says, Anna, it's the company's answer to a legacy portal software. So right there, there's a recognition that it's fairly limited in its capability, and that's primarily portal-centric. I think to your point, it's based off of the Chatter platform and that communities concept, but it's not just for partners. It's for sales as well, and I wouldn't say it's a feature within the larger communities product portfolio, but it's something that is broader than just what partners need. I think I read somewhere the statistics, the amount of revenue that is generated for this particular product is pretty microscopic when you look at the whole revenue generated by Salesforce overall. So it's clearly plugging a hole, but they're not looking at it in the same way that maybe all of us are looking at it, where it's completely and totally strategic to our business because most of our revenue is being generated through the channel.
Right. So that's a fairly broad definition of things. We'll get a little bit deeper into what it can do and what it can't do. But as we get in there, just keep this in mind. You need to be aware of what your needs are for functionality, integration, and affordability within what you're trying to do with your channel management approach. It's important not to have an approach that's going to bust the budget. It's important to have an approach that's going to allow you to do what you need to do to manage the channel properly, and that includes a lot of very disparate things tied under one roof. And you need to have a situation where if you've got a somewhat complex software set within the company, that you can integrate with that other software. PRM does not exist in a vacuum. It exists within the entirety of your company. That involves CRM and ERP and other things as well, and you need to be able to integrate those as well easily. So let's start looking at those questions. Let's look at the questions that you need to ask yourself when you're examining communities for sales from Salesforce. 10 questions here, and again, the channel choices hashtag. If you want to tweet about this webinar, please feel free to do so. This is the 10 questions to ask before you make the jump. Keep these in mind as you sit down to ponder whether or not Salesforce is the right option for you around your partner relationship management needs. First up, here's a rhetorical question for you. Do you want to be punished for your success? One of the ways that Salesforce builds for its product is by unique partner logins. So every time a partner hits your portal in a month, you get to pay for that partner. It's a dangerous thing because you want your partners to go to your portal on a regular basis. That's one of the ways you maintain engagement with those partners. When you get billed for every month that they hit your portal, what actually happens is you're paying for the fact that you have been successful in making the portal an effective tool and a place where people want to come in your channel program. And that can really add up. You see the numbers here. There are companies out there that have many more than 20,000 partners. So they're going to be paying even more than that big number there. It's kind of a scary situation. RelayWare is a slightly different approach, and Jim, I can talk about this very briefly because I know that you'll have some more to say on the next set of slides about these economic issues. RelayWare uses a flat fee. It's based on the edition you choose and the number of internal users at the company. So you can be as successful as you possibly can be at turning your portal into a go-to place for your partner community, and it's not going to cost you extra money. It's not going to be something you're penalized for doing. You're not going to be taxed, essentially, for being good at running a channel program that gets people engaged with the company. The next question is somewhat related. Have you ever felt like being priced out of business? The alternate billing model Salesforce uses is based on the number of licenses sold for every partner, just in case they visit the partner portal. You already paid for their license, and so you have a more predictable number to work with in terms of your billing to Salesforce, but it's still a pretty big number, as you see here. So going ahead, let's just talk about what RelayWare does instead. Jim, I know you have some very strong thoughts about this.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think as you look at either one of these approaches in pricing, you can see that our approach is much less expensive than what you would get going through Salesforce. And I think in general, you know, their prices are more competitive when the counts are smaller for smaller companies and smaller partner ecosystems. Easy for me to say. It's as it's getting bigger, and as you've mentioned, as your program gets to be more successful and grows, you don't want to be penalized. And I think a lot of ways Salesforce is restricted in their flexibility of what they can price because of the way they price their core product offering, their CRM solution. But it goes beyond just sort of the per partner, per login approach too. You've got to think about, especially for larger organizations, as you need to customize the solution to your own particular process. That's where the fees get pretty stiff with additional services and customizations because the product is just not quite as robust, as well as things like storing data and things like that. So the costs can add up pretty quickly, not only to build and deploy, but also to maintain it. So make sure you're asking all those questions as you're going through that search process.
Very important stuff. Next up is the question of training. Who needs training? Gosh, you know, if your channel is so simple you don't need training, well, Well, good for you, I guess. But the reality is training ends up being a very important aspect of what you do to make sure your partners can sell for you properly. As you see the quote there from the Forrester report, partner empowerment comes through education, and that's the way you make your partners effective at being agents for your business. So Salesforce enables training through their portal-style interface, but unfortunately, it tends to be one size fits all. And Tim, I know from your experience as an analyst at Forrester, you know that is not going to work for a very large number of organizations that sell to the channel.
Yeah, in my time at Forrester, I think partner enablement was at the top or near the top in terms of the, important discussion item that tech vendors had going on. The issue that they had, and I think they still have today, is that the partner community is becoming more diverse. Right? It's not just value-added resellers anymore. It's managed service providers and hosters and dealers, agents, consultants, et cetera. And so they really need processes and systems and metrics to be able to address, partners more granularly than what they had in the past. And so to be able to look at not just your overall needs, but in specifically your training needs, how you deliver training to partners needs to be very customized and personalized, right? So that an MSP might get different training or different training sequence or different certification than a value-added reseller, or even roles within a company, right? Obviously, a technical track person is going to receive different training and different, curricula and suggestions than someone who's in a sales role. And, be able to offer those sorts of differences by any criteria that you deem important. So maybe you deliver training differently for gold partners than you do silver, things like that. But I think that training, because it's so important part of the enablement program, really reflects the starting point of how you want to start to treat your partners as individual companies as opposed to one plain vanilla ecosystem.
Right. And I love the fact we have fully customized on here, because there are the nature of partners is becoming more and more complex, and there very well may be a partner that pops up into your program who has distinct needs with a distinct market to serve. That like you said, Tim, just giving them a one-size-fits-all training approach is just not going to work. It's got to be really truly tailored to what their needs are to make them effective faster and more behave in a more lucrative manner for you as a selling organization. So here's what RelayAware allows you to create. These are the things that make it work to give you that more effective, much deeper, much more partner-specific level of training, and it has a couple elements to it. I think, Tim, you just mentioned the whole idea of the expertise of the partner. I think there's also the idea that it makes you as the vendor a more pleasant vendor for those partners to work with, and keeps them around. Makes them more loyal and makes them feel like that they're actually being taken care of by you, which can give you a leg up in the battle for mind share and wallet share among other vendors that may be part of the partners vendor program.
Yeah, well, RelayAware's products are based on a sophisticated business rules engine. Right, that's at the core and heart of the technology, and so you can apply business rules to anything that you deem is important. In this case, what we're talking about is being able to, personalize training in the forms of the curricula, program, or coursewares based on, the criteria that a particular partner company might need. And so you can use the business rules engine to be able to accommodate really an infinite number of variety of partner types.
Yeah, this is such a contrast against the Salesforce approach that I think is important for anybody who has significant training needs in their program should just jot this down right now, because this is a make or break kind of thing. Our fourth question, do you enjoy paying extra for marketing automation? The Salesforce Marketing Cloud has been under construction now for a few years as they've acquired different companies and tried to integrate them into one big marketing cloud. And with the big ExactTarget/Pardot acquisition of last year, they kind of finally got some of the basics in place. They had some other things that were a little more esoteric, a little more advanced. But here's the thing about the Marketing Cloud. It's not part of Salesforce's Communities for Sales. It's something you would buy extra. And the other part about this is that all these companies they acquired and this Marketing Cloud they're building is still targeted. They're still targeted to that traditional CRM audience, that traditional direct sale audience. So there's none of the intricacies needed in marketing to a partner community. You know, Jim, as the CMO, you know all about marketing, and you know about you've had experience with marketing within the channel, and you know just how difficult it could be to try to tweak marketing automation from one audience to another when the needs are radically different.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to recognize that in partner management, we're always looking at helping our partners recruit new partners. We're also helping them enable them and onboard them. But really where the special sauce comes in is keeping them engaged and maintaining loyalty and interaction as well from the vendor out to the partners. And that's critical. I mean, we all know, we talked about in previous webinars how partners are managing multiple vendor relationships. So you're really competing for their mind share. So it's important to have a system here that is that connective tissue and is allowing you to sort of bring it all together through engagement campaigns and different types of touch strategies, and is integrated throughout the whole PRM solution as well. So you're using marketing automation to push them to certain training, new products that are available, new collateral that's available, and so forth. So within our platform, within RelayWare, we have a very robust marketing automation engine with social capabilities as well, as we've talked about, that can help you keep your partners engaged and maintain their loyalty.
And the big difference here in terms of functionality is that while Salesforce may be great at marketing to people, you've got to be, as a partner, somebody running a partner program, you've got to be adept at also marketing with people, and that is a significant difference. Question number 5, do all of your partners look alike? I mean, I guess it would be really interesting and easy if you could recruit a bunch of partners who had the exact same characteristics across the board, but we live in the real world, and the reality is that every partner you have has some unique qualities to them and some unique aspects to them. Salesforce Communities doesn't allow you to really do that kind of granular examination of who your partners are and tailor things for them. As you see here, it's hard to do scorecarding. It's hard to do profile matching. It's hard to do things with the data you have about your partners to make sure that you're looking at them the way they need to be looked at.
Yeah, and Chris, we touched upon this in the training question, that when you talk about training and enablement, you certainly want to be able to treat partners differently through your PRM system, but it extends beyond training as well. So again, with RelayWare's products, we have a data structure that supports the roll-up of contacts, local branches, and parent organizations. So you can address your partners, by the way, at any one of those levels. If you need to, communicate at the company level, you can. If you need to communicate down at the individual user level within partner companies, you can. But there's an intermediate as well, and that's branches, which tends to be relevant and practical for larger partner companies. You think about larger channel companies like Dimension Data, Logicalis, CompuCom, SHI, others, they have multiple locations, and sometimes you want to be able to have location or geo-specific communications as well, right? But the bottom line here, again, to reemphasize a point that we made earlier, is that with, based on the business rules engine in RelayWare, you can group partners and communicate to those groups in any form that you need.
Great. Now this brings us to another aspect of the marketing and market development efforts. MDF funds, market development funds, are they not a part of your program? Well, studies show that they are part of most channel programs, so the answer to that is probably no. And if it's no, I mean, the answer is probably yes. If the answer is no, it's great for you if you want to use Salesforce because they offer kind of basic and rudimentary MDF program support. There's a sort of a limitation on the sophistication in managing those funds. However, most channel programs do use MDF. They do use co-op funds. They do attempt to use incentives based around money to drive partner behavior. And if you're going to use money to do that, you're going to want to be able to manage that and understand what the results of those efforts are. RelayWare is a little bit different, Tim. I know that we've talked a lot about studying the relationships between activities and results, and I think we discussed this a little bit earlier. This is one of the things that really differentiates RelayWare from Salesforce when it comes to the nitty-gritty of managing a program like this.
Yeah, one of the things, Chris, about the RelayWare too is the interconnectedness of the processes, and MDF is a good example, right? So you want to be able to, measure MDF not just in the context of how well market development funds are being utilized, but how effective that market development fund investment is paying off. Here's an example. You may want to, and you probably should consider measuring market development fund utilization and MDF funded activities against deal registration to determine, which of those MDF activities investments is actually leading to deals. And to be able to, track those things, here's another example. Are gold partners utilizing MDF more than silver? And vice versa, and if so, should you actually give more MDF to gold partners than silver? So to be able to measure MDF not only in and of itself, but how it's affecting all the other elements and aspects of your partner program are critical.
I know that what you just mentioned here about tiers and about the allocation of resources to those tiers is one of your pet issues because so many companies basically give those funds to companies that are already doing the things they need to be doing, and they're not motivating people who could be persuaded to make that step up. And if you don't have the visibility into how those funds are paying off, you can never, ever hope to change that situation. So 7, are you against being actually social? I know this seems like kind of a weird thing to postulate when you're talking about Salesforce and a product that was built somewhat around Chatter, which is their social flagship product. It's important to be social, obviously. We live in the social era. You see that number there from Forrester. It shows how many channel partners are already involved in social media marketing. But the reality is, when you're talking about Salesforce's Communities for Sales, you're talking about something that was designed around Chatter, and you're talking about Chatter, which was designed initially as kind of an internal social collaboration tool. In other words, the people in the company who had Salesforce would be using Chatter internally to talk to each other, which meant the participants in that discussion were all predetermined. Later versions of Chatter enabled people to invite external users in, but it's still a situation where you pre-select everybody in the group. So when you're talking about a social conversation, what you're talking about is the people you have picked coming in and speaking. It's like planning a workshop, right? You plan the people who are going to be there. You know who's going to be there every time, so you probably have a pretty good understanding of what they're likely to say. RelayWare is a little bit different. It's a different approach to that because RelayWare allows you to do that picking of people. You can have specific groups or communities that are chosen folks from a subset of your partner community, but also you can throw the door open to everybody, and you can have a wide open conversation. And there's real value to that. There's a couple of real values to that. One is the traditional social thing where first of all, you appear more open as a company, but second of all, you get ideas from places that you wouldn't expect them to come from. You get tips and ideas about how you could do things better from outsiders who then might see you as a receptive audience for those ideas and perhaps might start considering you as a partner in the future. That leads it to the second aspect of why doing that is a smart idea. It helps with recruitment. Suddenly you see people who are talking about topics that, that your partners are knowledgeable about, that might indicate that those people are also potential partners down the line. And you would never have known about that if you were talking that closed environment that Chatter provides. It's very important to be genuinely social and to plan your engagements in a coherent way that enables not just that internal discussion to take place, but also to bring in external voices and get that view of how others see you. Very important thing to do in a social era. Question number 8, can you afford to ignore recruitment? Speaking of recruitment, I think most channel managers would say that recruitment is one of their key tasks and an important thing, and it's the way you keep your program growing and sustaining itself. Salesforce Community has some things that help with recruitment. There's some aspects that are designed to help with recruitment, but they're pretty rudimentary. List management and email marketing, they're great for working off a list. But once that list is depleted, the rest of the task of recruitment is left up to you. And recruitment is not just a matter of sending out applications in the mail. It's a little more complicated than that. And
Chris,
Jim, you know all about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what you said up front here on this point is, we've done a number of webinars on a number of different topics over the last, let's just say, 5-6 months. And recruitment, time and again, always seems to get the most interest and activity across the board. And if, I think we're going to tweet right now a link to our white paper on recruitment if you're interested in seeing that. But, one of our premises here with recruitment is it's recruiting the right partners, right? It's not just sort of a volume game here. The rules of the game have changed in a lot of ways where I think a lot of vendor organizations are realizing they may have a lot of partners, but they may not be the right partners for how their business is shifting in more of a cloud-oriented type of world that we're in today, and much more services-driven. So I think people are taking stock, and our tool can really help with that through things like social and messaging like you've just talked about, but also gets back to the marketing automation. And having it all tied together within one unified system, and the tiering and the segmentation of your partners as you're recruiting them. So there are definitely some limitations in the Salesforce solution if recruitment is important to you, and a lot of it, as you said, is left to you to handle yourself, since there's not a lot of automation around the approval and the routing workflows and things like that. So make sure you dig in if that's important to you.
And aside for Tim, have you ever talked to a channel organization that was completely satisfied with the nature and the number of partners that they had?
I think there are some that may be satisfied with the number, but I can't find any that are satisfied with the nature. There's even if you've got a large number of partners in your ecosystem, there seems to be constant culling going on. It's like, how do we get rid of the non-productive partners, or those that are actually costing us a lot to support and not bringing in a whole lot of revenue? But how do we go out and replace them with the right partners, right? Those that meet that Pareto curve goal that a lot of companies have. So absolutely.
An ongoing challenge for everybody. So number 9, do your partners motivate and incentivize themselves? Well, I think most partners have the overarching goal of making a bunch of money, but the reality is you want them to do the things that you want them to do to make sure that you're profitable as they succeed too. You want to be the company whose products they resell versus your competitors. So some incentivization is very, very important. The basic nature of Salesforce, because of its origins as a CRM application, don't allow you to track connected interactions in these programs very effectively. You'd have to create new fields in order to do that, which means customizations and at an expense. RelayWare takes a very different approach to that. Tim, I know that the incentives is like I said earlier, is a really important aspect of what you focus on, and one of your your pet issues. How do you see this approach differing, and how do you see RelayWare getting the job done in a more effective way for its users?
Well, incentivization, I think, is top of mind for a lot of companies as well. The result being a result of product margins, specifically cloud product margins going down. Right? That means that margins are going down for both the tech vendors, but also for their partners as well. If margins are going around, I mean, that was really the historic way that channel partner companies made money, was on the resale margin. If those are going down, and they are, there's lots of industry data to prove it, you know, tech companies have to be creative in terms of coming up with other sorts of economic incentivization models that are going to keep their partners loyal to them, right? Now, one of the things I talked about earlier was the interconnectedness that is inherent within RelayWare's products. And so you can actually score anything, any sort of activity. So you can score MDF utilization, you can score, you know, number of deals registered, you can score training and certification investment that a partner makes. And you can, on those scores, based on those scores, you can certainly apply them to tiers, but you can apply them to other sorts of incentives as well. Financial incentives, either the company level or the personal level, the latter being spiffs, or you can even engage in gamification where you're, you know, launching contest-like programs and displaying leaderboards for various types of programs, whether that be, you know, new deals in a quarter, you know, number of leads generated, or, you know, greatest amount of customer satisfaction or certification investment.
And that takes us to number 10 in the hit parade here. Are you psyched about CRM vendor lock-in? Are you excited to have your choice in what CRM vendor you can use kind of dictated to you? If you choose Communities, it ties you into Salesforce as your CRM application, or at least it does without a very, very significant investment in some additional integration to make Communities work with another CRM application. And frankly, why would you do that? That would be an expense that once you'd already bitten the bullet would be very unlikely to make. Vendor lock-in. Would you rather make a forklift upgrade, tear everything out, or would you rather do something that's faster and less costly? And as we're talking about RelayWare versus Salesforce, you may think that it's a one or the other thing, but Jim, it's really not, is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think first of all, a majority of our deployments include some level of integration with Salesforce.com. So, you know, we have a lot of history in doing that, and spend every day of the working week working with that system. So we have the experience there, but I think it's much more than that. I think it's beyond just Salesforce and CRM and saying, well, what other kinds of systems either inside my organization or in the cloud that we leverage do I need to integrate with into the PRM solution? And frequently that can be something like an ERP system, you know, which is managing budgets for your MDF programs and having that level of integration to tie in. It could be a number of other third-party applications as well, where our, you know, API connections can prove very fruitful and useful for our customers as well. So it's really thinking about the broad types of systems that need to be integrated into your PRM solution, not just Salesforce itself, when you're thinking this through.
Great. Well, those are our 10 questions. So let's just summarize here. Salesforce.com is great at automating the direct sale activities that you may have. But when you start looking deeper into what Communities is all about, you're going to see that the functionality is limited, the economic aspects of it are somewhat challenging, and the integration aspects that you may face in implementing it are going to be perhaps a little intimidating to the bottom line. So keep these ideas in mind. Here we have kind of boiled down to 5 very important questions. They have to do a lot with personalization. Has a lot to do with making yourself easier to work with business, and it has a lot to do with the idea that your channel success should not result in you taking a gigantic hit on the bottom line. It should be about you using the application to its most effective outcome, because that's what you're trying to do. It's not about you paying more for that. It's about you getting the most out of what you've already paid for. So let's go to the Q&A session. Susie, do you have any questions that the folks who are listening have sent in?
Yep, Chris, we've got a few. So if I start with this one, does login equal license, or does that mean someone who has a license and then logs in?
Yeah, Susie, I'll take that. This is Tim Harmon. I think Jim described logins pretty well. It's the number of times that a partner user logs into the Salesforce.com partner portal in a given month, right? Whereas a license is really granted to a partner user, and the cost of that license is static. In other words, it doesn't vary based on the number of times that the partner logs in or doesn't log in, which is the kind of the problem with that approach. That pricing approach is that, you know, if you have only 20% of your partners that log in, but you're paying for the other 80% that don't log in, you're actually paying for non-value in a sense, and that's the problem, I think, with that particular pricing model.
Okay, next one we've got is some of the functionality you described we used and some we haven't. Should that affect the way we look at this comparison?
I think I could take that one, Susie. You know, we recognize, you know, talking with both customers and prospects that they don't need necessarily the whole platform. You know, there's frequently when we engage with a new customer, there's an acute requirement. It could be a painful one, it could be an opportunity they've realized, and they don't want to get the whole solution here. So what we can help them with is choosing and biting off what they need, but also giving them the opportunity to grow and to apply new types of functionality as the needs arise here. So having that flexibility, we recognize, is very important for our existing customers and new customers. And we think in a lot of ways it's difficult for what we recognize for Salesforce to really split it out that way. It's a fairly monolithic system here, and they don't have that same level of flexibility. So we're going to be making a lot more advancements and modifications to even our own packaging to make it much more modular as well, and again, to recognize the need that we see coming in from the marketplace.
Okay, have we got time for another one?
I think so.
Okay, what would it take to add personalization and rule-based content delivery to Salesforce Communities?
Well, I think I could take that one. That one is, having spent a lot of time in the CRM space, I can tell you that that is a situation where you're asking to make a fairly significant customization. So what you're going to have to do is either you've got in-house resources to do that, which very few companies do, and frankly, if you're engaged with Salesforce, you probably engage with them because of their SaaS model, which meant you didn't have to have as many in-house resources. So either you've got those in-house resources, which you probably don't, or you're going to have to deal with a third party to do it. And so you're looking at significant added expense and significant modifications to the application. Also, you've got then you'll have an ongoing expense every time Salesforce updates its application. You're going to have somebody come back in and make sure that your customizations have survived the update. So what you've basically done is you will have added an ongoing perpetual maintenance issue to your Salesforce Communities iteration. That's pretty expensive. And most people get involved with Salesforce because they think it's going to be a cost saver over an on-premise solution in a lot of cases, or the economic argument they're making is one that sort of is about limiting expense. When you start customizing Salesforce, I don't think Salesforce is particularly cheap to start with, but when you start customizing it, it really starts to get expensive. There are lots of people out there who make some good money. They're very good partners for Salesforce. They make great money customizing the application. But if you don't have that kind of money to share with them, then you may want to avoid going that route.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We hope you found it useful and thought-provoking. So watch your emails for a link to the white paper and rebroadcast, and be sure to check the website for replays and any new webinars to come. So thanks very much for listening, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.